Welcome to the Mortuary Masterclass, brought to you by the Champion Company, where preservation meets purpose, and every step is part of your journey to safer solutions. In this episode, we're diving into something that's been getting louder across the profession, especially as more women step into the prep room, and honestly, it's overdue, because the newest research has brought a very real exposure issue into the spotlight. We're talking about formaldehyde and solvent-type chemicals and what they mean for embalmers who are pregnant, planning to be, or those supporting colleagues who are. Now, before we get into the weeds, let's honor history. Formaldehyde is the bedrock of modern preservation. It shaped the foundation of everything we do today. Its legacy is not erased here. But part of honoring the past is being honest about the present and where the roadmap is guiding us next. And that roadmap has been clear. Study after study shows similar patterns in workplaces that mirror embalming exposures: reduced fertility, spontaneous abortions, early-term births, and fetal complications. One of the strongest examples comes from female workers in the wood industry. Same exposure profile, same symptoms, same outcomes. When formaldehyde exposure was documented, so were the negative pregnancy results. Animal studies echo the pattern. Increased risks of major fetal malformations, true teratogenic effects, linked not only to formaldehyde but also to the solvents we use every day. The deeper the research goes, the more obvious it becomes for pregnancy, and repeated exposure doesn't mix well. And solvents deserve their own spotlight. We're talking alcohols, acetone, phenols, chemicals that show up in a lot of modern formulations. These have been linked to spontaneous abortions, fetal malformations, and teratogenicity across multiple industries. There's even data showing prenatal solvent exposure, leading to color blindness and reduced visual acuity in children later in life. And then there's TCE, trichloroethylene, popular in some prep rooms as a dry wash solvent. But nearly every other industry is working overtime to eliminate it because of its long history as a suspected teratogen, and now because human data backs that suspicion up. So, let's talk about the next steps, the next milestone on your journey to safer solutions. If you're pregnant or planning to be, the strongest recommendation is straightforward. Avoid embalming if possible. But life doesn't always allow for perfect timing. And when embalming is unavoidable, every layer of protection becomes essential. That means a full face or half face respirator with fresh cartridges for formaldehyde and organic vapors every single time. That means nitrile gloves instead of latex, impermeable gowns, shields, and minimizing your time in the room whenever you can. And here's where we circle back to formaldehyde with respect. It built this profession, but modern chemistry gives us choices that embalmers 60 years ago didn't have. You can eliminate around 90% of total formaldehyde exposure without sacrificing quality or results. Remove it from cavity chemicals. Replace old autopsy compounds that mix wood dust with formaldehyde. Instead, use compound like Champion's New Era compound, which eliminates formaldehyde altogether. And absolutely retire old-school formaldehyde sprays. They spike airborne exposure for almost no real gain. This is where glutaraldehyde becomes a major on-ramp to safety. To get the same fixative action, formaldehyde has to be used at much higher concentrations. Glutaraldehyde doesn't. Its vapor pressure is 1/6 that of formaldehyde, which is a gas. So the ambient airborne levels are drastically lower. And even in high-dose lab studies that cause maternal toxicity, glutaraldehyde hasn't produced consistent teratogenic effects. Replacing formaldehyde with glutaraldehyde significantly reduces total exposure in routine embalming. But even with modern chemistry, the truth stays steady. All embalming chemicals can pose risks during pregnancy. Reductions help. Respiratory protection closes the gap. Your safety becomes a map you build step by step. Now let's circle back to solvents one more time. Choosing low-volatility fluids dramatically cuts exposure to alcohols and phenols. These aren't typically the highest risk chemicals, but they're still contributors. And then we get to the notorious category: drying type cavity fluids. These combine high concentration formaldehyde with high alcohol solvent to create a volatile mixture that practically launches itself into the air, especially in humid environments. These products produce the highest formaldehyde readings ever recorded in prep room monitoring, and they don't embalm significantly better than traditional cavity chemicals. Add in flammability risks, and they simply don't justify their exposure costs. Phenols, when present in small amounts, don't pose unique hazards beyond normal solvent precautions. But TCE, that one deserves a permanent exit. It's unnecessary, unsafe, environmentally damaging, and legally risky. It has safer alternatives in every direction. So here's the bottom line. If you don't have to embalm during pregnancy, don't embalm. If you do, maximize your protections, minimize your exposure windows, choose modern low-volatility formulations, remove unnecessary formaldehyde sources, avoid drying-type cavity chemicals, eliminate TCE entirely. Every decision you make in the prep room, big or small, becomes part of a safer environment for you, your colleagues, and the families you serve. And progress doesn't happen in one leap. It happens in small steps, mindful choices, smarter formulations, and a commitment to protecting the people who do this work every day. Thanks for tuning in to this special edition of the Mortuary Masterclass. Until next time, keep doing what you do best, championing the prep room with purpose, because embalmers matter. And every step forward is part of your journey to safer solutions. That's the champion difference.